I've got the blues, I've got the blues, I've got the alcoholic blues. No more beer, my heart to cheer. Goodbye, whiskey, you used to make me frisky. So long, highball, so long, gin. Oh, tell me when you're coming back again. Blues, I've got the blues since the amputation.
Hello, and welcome back to our podcast, a fanfic of a fanfic that in itself is a synthesis of Fallout, a popular game about post-apocalyptic wasteland, and My Little Pony, a popular show about pastel horses. I'm back again with my host. Say hello.
Well, you would be the host, Fi, whereas
already messed
I
this
am
up.
the co-host and audience surrogate, Sir Weirdington Esquire.
We're both hosts. We're dual hosts.
Oh man, tag team.
Let's go. So, yeah, we made it. Second episode. We're doing it. We're doing the thing. So, thanks for keeping on with us, folks. But before I get started into the stuff proper, got some a small amount of house cleaning to do. First of all, I think I said the wrong date for the end of the ending of the original story. Not that it really matters, but it's going to bug me if I don't say that. Like, I think it ended in 2012 and not 2011. I confused it, I think, with its start date of the original story. Second of all, upon rereading, there's a line that I made that I kind of want to rescind, in which I said that I kind of like P21. And upon rereading of the second chapter, I've realized that's just not true. Not even a little bit.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you kind of liked, and moreover, I seem to recall that like one of the chilling, ominous forebodings that was presented to myself and the audience by extension was that this character is meant to be our moral compass.
Yeah.
And it is not good.
Yeah. We're gonna launch into it in a hot second, but yeah, I just wanted to clear that stuff up. But yeah, so just again, thanks for clicking on the the podcast, the audio thing that you can't watch with your eyeballs, and checking us out. All right,
Jiminy Cricket, is that a Kekistan flag?
Oh no. We are not that kind of people. All right, so I guess we should just, without requiring too much preamble this time, let's just jump right back into it. So, to recap our previous chapter, we met our main character. We were Blackjack. We were exposed to the post-apocalyptic setting in which we're set in, but primarily through a vault of tiny pastel horses who lived a highly matriarchal society,
Sustain themselves
really
solely on
totalitarian.
Soylent Green crackers. So yeah, no, like I from what I recall, pastel pony drow, but like the worst and most like. Oh, the most terrible thing we can imagine is a matriarchal society, drow. Would that just be innately horrible and evil?
Yes, I wanted to make the point, I guess, on this episode that like primarily what I meant about like matriarchal society isn't like a matriarchal society that is like good in any real way. Like it's the matriarchal society from the perspective of like a deeply wrong-headed perspective on like societies that would be run by women. So it believes that like men would be oppressed and second-class citizens, and women would hold all positions of power because the WOMs are scary. But I guess we'll actually get into this chapter now that we've done our sort of brief recap and preamble.
So we leave this because Immortan Pony, the Fire Nation attacks. Our heroes have to escape with their lives from the Firefly-style pony reavers, led by Morton Pony, the living Metal Gear. And the thing that the bad guys want from them that they've stolen as they escape is the Maltese OS.
Yeah, some sort of mysterious MacGuffin that they need, and we don't know why. All right.
One final thing to interrupt you. So remind me, who is our cast of survivors in the Wasteland? Right? Is it just two characters? Is it Blackjack, the pony, who is who is terrible at absolutely everything and just no use to the world around her, except incidentally as an unstoppable killing machine.
Yes.
And P21, emotionally stunted gigolo.
Yes. Something like that. That's a good description of him. All right, so yes, I guess we will launch ourselves into the
Slave gigolo.
Oh God, that's a horrible concept. But we'll launch ourselves.
It is indeed the concept that you yourself presented to me as being representative of the book.
I know, but slave. If we're getting tripped up on slave gigolo, we're not gonna make it.
Oh no, boy. Okay.
All right, so I guess after a couple of false starts, because we'll launch right into chapter 2, Trust. So we open basically immediately where we left off. P21 and Blackjack have escaped the vault or stable. I keep saying it a vault because stable just sounds dumb and it doesn't organically come off my brain.
Fine, it sounds dumb because it is dumb.
I know it's dumb. I know.
Okay, so all right.
But they immediately escape the vault and immediately just trash two ponies on their way out that were guarding the door, because apparently the entire fighting force was inside the stable proper. But they immediately destroy these horses. Then there's a little bit of a back and forth between the two of them that is sort of annoyingly inconsequential, because a lot of this chapter is really just about P21 having some sort of unresolved baggage with Blackjack that she doesn't understand, and then Blackjack trying to figure out how to fix the problem. So they escape, they run as fast as they can, and I think this is around the time they find a something to hide behind as they're being pursued by a bunch more ponies that are looking for them. Someone I forgot to introduce as a character, because I didn't think they were important at the time, and I guess they just were. There was another stable pony that had left the stable at some point, and we don't know when that happened. It's hard to pin down on the timeline when it happened, but U21, which was the unicorn equivalent to P21, who was about to be retired, escaped before being summarily
carouselled.
Yeah, carouselled. And that's how they found the stable in the first place, apparently. But I totally forgot to bring it up because I didn't think it was consequential at the time. But he's leading the pack of the ones trying to track them down, because he's now being used as I don't know what you call it. The raiders are using him to do something.
Their local guide.
Yeah, their local guide. And he reveals that apparently Pip-Bucks all have a tag that allows it to track other Pip-Bucks if you know their codes. So they're tracking down Blackjack, and they basically just have to keep ahead of them, or they'll be able to catch them at some point. We just when it seems all hope is lost, they bump into basically what looks like a flying robotic bug of some kind that indicates and gives them instructions. They manage to the chase, and because they end up not trusting U21 and believing that he can actually track them down because they're raiders, they don't trust them. With a moment to settle, they finally realize, they sort of start coming to grasp with the actual enormity of escaping and being out into the wasteland. And this is when we get to currently the only sort of interesting idea about Blackjack that I kind of like, which is that she's terrified of the sky, which I thought was kind of a cool idea, because living in a cave her entire life, she kind of doesn't understand, has a hard time coming to grasp with the concept of the sheer enormity of the void of space above them, which I thought was kind of an interesting quirk, even though despite her being terrified of it, of course P21 just isn't, for really no reason. It's a really, really frustrating kind of detail, and I'll get to more of these as it happens. But they interact with this weird robot that's talking to them, and it reveals himself as something called the Watcher. It's a character that will take chapters to explain. It's really dumb who their identity actually is, just like it always is in this kind of story. But yeah, he gives them the tips to say, get some guns, get some equipment, if you're stuck surviving out in these wastes. But yeah, they interact with Watcher, who gives them a bunch of advice on how to survive. He makes a sort of nod to them being friends, and they have the whole awkward moment of, oh, we're not actually friends, and they kind of look at each other awkwardly about it.
God, my Kingdom for a Marvel joke. I really want to just just start ranting about like all the like deep lore about the character from Marvel Comics, the Watcher, who lives on the moon and is an ancient celestial being who does not interfere but observes it. Anyway.
Yes, it's basically that.
Oh God, is it? No, what? No, no, no. The secret was it was supposed to be like some dude in a bunker who's like, God damn it.
He's not on the moon, but it's basically that. He's actually from the main story as well. This is where we start running into characters that are just in. They're really just homages and references to things that happen in Fallen Equestria. I'll point them out every time they happen, but I'm not really going to.
This is the part where
this is the part where
it
we're all
folds in
supposed
on
to.
itself.
It's the part
where in like.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the Starbucks meeting the Starbucks. Don't worry. There's a whole chapter of this at one point. But we've got our first instance of like a really infuriating, really obnoxious trend that I really, really hate about Somber's writing that becomes really present here. Blackjack constantly leans on P21's intellect and ability to figure out the situation constantly, and always refers to him as the smarter one of the two.
Hold on, really?
Yeah.
How did the gigolo slave where did they acquire these life skills?
Well, the explanation behind the lockpicking was that the excuse is that when you're not on rotation to get fucked by a mare, you just learn skills. Like he picked up lockpicking because it was something to do and he wanted to escape the stable his entire life. But anyways, it's a really, really obnoxious detail that like is going to become really infuriating in this point and like in this chapter and chapters going forwards. But anyways, P21's like leg really starts to like swell up because like meds aren't a substitute for medical treatment.
Even a splint?
I think they got a leg brace on him at this point, but it's not like they're still basically having to be like one step ahead of their pursuers or they're going to get caught. So they on advice by the Watcher, they get, or maybe he's just called Watcher, it doesn't really matter. They duck into a farm. And this is where it starts getting really, really frustrating. They go into they find this farm. They find a bunch of shit to lockpick, which is really just like useless. Hey, this is how they get these guns and med kits and stuff like that. It's not really particularly interesting, detailed information. But the part that really started to frustrate me and like remembered why I didn't like this chapter very much, and I'm kind of like, this might be not the worst chapter by any stretch of the means, but it's certainly one of the most boring, because almost this entire chapter is just them basically hanging out in a farm and then going to a school. But they hang out in this farm, and it's where we start getting a bunch of the apocalyptic backstory exposition stuff. They find a bunch of framed pictures, and they're utterly especially Blackjack is utterly confused by the nature of them because they show normal, functional families, and she can't wrap her brain around that because, matriarchy. It's a bizarre world where nuclear families are considered like a unique and paradigm-shifting concept to this Fash pony.
Oh no.
Yes.
There's so much to unpack about that entire premise.
Oh, get ready. We're going to be talking about this a lot in the coming seconds.
I mean, like, okay, any potential listeners are probably like screaming, well, of course you would never have experienced like a nuclear family. No, dear listener, I mean I don't even know where to begin to articulate it. It's the premise that like.
Let me finish the detail, this plot point, and then we can start yelling about it in full power.
Yeah, no, I'll try to make a note of it, and I can let my thoughts percolate.
So they have they look over all the nuclear families in this little group, and they see like a bunch of members of what are in the actual story, the Apple family. Including just a bunch of other characters that are self-inserts, basically. But they have a look over them, and Blackjack, in just sort of a moment of trying to make some small talk, comments on how attractive she finds one of them in a military uniform. And this is where we get to the point where I actually forgot, and this is where it kills 21 forever, right here in like this one set of paragraph. Her response to saying, oh, well, he's kind of attractive, causes P21 to launch into a screed of essentially bizarre, like bizarro world feminism, like, but the kind of feminism articulated by a person who doesn't really know what feminism is. So he's like, well, oh, is that all you see to them? Is their breeding potential? This man's a father and this man's a soldier. Proud ponies that have their own lives. Like, how could you just reduce them down to being breeding stock? It's the most frustrating character, like, not even character assassination, because 21 wasn't really that good in the first place, but like in the haze of nostalgia that I guess I still kind of have for certain details of this story, the character of P21, like, so to not explain too much, P21 eventually goes on to being like a slightly nicer character about it, but what his sort of core detail is basically like, I hate women, and my entire identity is built around this, in a way that it tries to present the idea that it's okay for him to hate women because was in an incredibly fascist matriarchal society which created those feelings. But like, it's not a story in a vacuum, so like, it's very clearly like an attempt to try and write like a, in theory, like, reverse feminist character, like not even anti-feminist. Like,
he is an MRA icon.
Yeah, he literally an eminist, like to the point where like he gets a cowboy hat later on, but like it's only because it would have been too much to have a fedora. Like P21 is the epitome of like put upon male who is burdened by his sense of righteousness and justice and logic and reason. Because this story, time and time and time again, constantly reiterates that he's the smart one, he's the morally virtuous one. Blackjack constantly does things that 21 insists are not the right thing to do. But the problem with that is that 21's mindset is completely like tinted by like a set of values that kind of only exist there because the author might have some baggage.
Okay, well, so what happened? So I got a note down.
You got a note down. All right.
Let's resolve that in the aftermath. Let's just cool off on that, and let's have something fun.
I'm genuinely mad, by the way. Like, I'm actually angry. Like, the blood is high on this plot detail. But anyways,
I'm only gonna make him more mad by like poking at like some of the assumptions present in like what I have just been told about the narrative.
So we're just gonna move on and put a pin in it. So they also find a terminal amongst the stuff, and it clearly belongs to the like older male in the basically grandfather of the members, and it's revealed he was like an old man who was carrying journals of to basically help with his Alzheimer's, and it's most of it's just exposition about stuff that's happened in the past. It mentions about how Princess Celestia steps down after a particularly major tragedy happens, which was an assassination on her attempt in Shattered Hoof, I think is what it was called. And Luna takes over instead. They're the two major princesses from the show. It mentions the journals mention how I guess it'd be his grandson, but this is a made up character anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Big Macintosh took the bullet for Celestia, and he dead. He dead. Yeah, he dead. I'm so like distraught. My words are going. But he dies, and it's a big tragedy because he was considered like a massive war hero. He like carried a lot of the war on his own back, so it was considered a big loss. This is the first time this story mentions one of the ministries, which were the big bodies of government within Luna's constitutional democracy, I think is what it was by the end of the story. It mentions the Ministry of Technology, which is important as it'll happen. There is a mystery pony that's mentioned that might be a character that comes up later, so like I guess 60 chapters from now I'll reference to this and be like, hey, it's the first mention of this character.
Wait, so something is just occurring to me, like all this infrastructure and like the concept of ministries and shit, this is a post-apocalypse.
Sort of?
Like I mean, I held my tongue earlier, but like, so most of the story takes place like on a farm and in a school. Like,
well, this particular story,
like the land is arable. Like there's like
Well, it was a farm. It used to be a farm, but it was like
Okay,
desolated by.
the ruins of a farm.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. So I guess to go back a half step, yeah, they find the ruins of a bombed out farm that had been affected by radioactive waste. Because radiation is in this story because nuclear weapons are in this story essentially. I'm going to get into a very exhaustive conversation about these at some point, but we kind of have to just get through this part right now. So I'm just gonna skip them for now, but keep in mind they will come up later.
Okay.
So they have they sort of have like a moment together where they realize the skeletons that were or the skeleton that was inside the farmhouse belonged to the horse that they read about and feel sorry for because he died with the rest of his family either being buried or like away, and it's a sad moment where he basically just dies of radiation sickness, and it's tragic. They decide to give him sort of a burial with his wife, and when they do that, they dig up. Okay, so when they do that, they dig up a small figurine that they found in the hooves of the other horse, and the little figurine is a figurine of one of the Ministry mares, Applejack, for those who know MLP, with a little icon, like a little like plaque on it that says "Be strong." Blackjack has a little conversation with P21 about it, and they decide to like take it with them as like a memorial for Hoff and his death, and I guess to remember like those that had fallen and all that shit. They end up staying in the farm for the night. Blackjack wakes up the day after with like a moment of momentary homesickness. She has this sort of like realization of like that her life is now the wasteland, and that's all it's going to be now from then on.
I'll never eat another reconstituted person again.
I'll never have no friends again. I'll never play cards with people who hate me again. I'll never be trying to hit on a woman that has no interest in me again.
This is the worst timeline for our heroine.
Yeah. Well, we're in part 1.5 of the hero's journey right now, so regardless, they're woken up to the sound of raiders tracking them down finally. Because U-21 finally manages to convince them that the Pip-Buck tag will track them down. They get into the barn, and Blackjack then I'm just gonna end up skipping a lot of the violence that happens in the story because it kind of is very irrelevant to the story overall a lot of the time. Sometimes I might make details about how a particular important thing happens in the violence, but for the most part, it's just kind of like it's the bodice ripper sex scenes to violence in an apocalypse. Like it's there to placate people who are interested in that stuff, but a lot of it's very uninteresting. Blackjack,
Sort of like the one of the big numbers in a shitty like 50s musical that like no new plot details are revealed. Like the number like comes out of nowhere. Its function is only like padding, like is
right, exactly. And a lot of these are basically feel like that. We have our gory shotgun murder montage where Blackjack paints the walls with one character, kills another, and then like spares one of them. I think is one of them. Then they manage to corner U-21, and she shoots him with a shotgun. And it just so happens that the Pip-Buck he has on his hoof was like in the way, and it took the brunt of the shells. It wrecked the Pip-Buck, but it didn't kill him. And then P21 does the whole like puts himself in the way, and he's like, I don't want, like, you can't kill him, like, please don't kill him. Specifically with the line, I'm not letting you kill another stable 99 mare, and Blackjack's just kind of puzzled by that. Left to decide if he means just in a broad sense or if something specific happened. It's really not an interesting plot detail, like it really isn't. Blackjack and P21 have really dumb history, and I will explain it when I get to it, but like it's really not important. But I think it's because I'm like,
I'm in shock. I'm in denial. Like that can't be that. Like this is like they're okay. Hold on. Let me see if I follow. These are our two principal characters currently.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of Laurel and Harding up across the wasteland.
Yeah.
Like, odd coupling through the brutal rape and gun battlefield glowing desert. One of them's a cop. The other is a gigolo slave. And the gigolo slave has implied that she has killed someone important to him.
Yep.
And that is the core of their distrust. Mm-hmm. And whoever she probably killed was so insignificant to her that it doesn't like
Yep.
she can't even conceive of who it might be.
It takes 40 to no, it maybe takes 60 chapters for them to explain this plot detail.
What?
It's a massive
It
just
lingers on the,
yes.
as a shadow over this entire thing for
So
that long.
so we get into the point I want to make, which is that P-21 is given a gun because like Blackjack's like, you have to have a gun, you have to survive, and he shoots her with it the first time they get into a gunfight, and she just immediately chalks it up to like him being panicky and shooting it, and it's later sort of revealed in this chapter and then emphasized for chapters and chapters later that P-21 is in such a in such of a kind of wrecked emotional state about Blackjack specifically that he will actually shoot her if given a gun. So he refuses to take one. In this chapter, they kind of like grow to respect each other enough that he will tolerate being around her because she's the only one that he can trust. But at the same time, he will also shoot her given the option for revenge for a thing that happened.
That he won't even like discuss
Yep.
for a phenomenal number of chapters.
Yeah.
And our heroine is so completely incurious. She doesn't pry.
Yes.
It's always extraordinary, like when you have an author who like clearly hates their own like. So far, Blackjack seems to like there's a lot of symptoms that like Blackjack exists for the author to hate.
Yeah, kind of.
She's.
I think that's something that's going to be like a real struggle to think about because I had a long think about this when starting up this project. Is that I actually like Blackjack more than I think the author does because she is a character with a lot of potential that is completely ruined by huge swaths of this story, which is deeply frustrating. But who knows? Like I was wrong about P-21. I'm probably wrong about BJ. I might be wrong about all the other characters. My favorite character in this whole story might be a complete lie. But we won't get to them for like maybe a dozen chapters anyways. So a dozen episodes.
Well, let's get to them. So
let's press on.
All right. All right. Sub recap. They spend a lot of time pissing about in a barn, reminiscing nostalgically over the original story of which this is a fanfic of. Hey, remember that story you liked? Let's focus on that for a while.
Yeah.
And then then the baddies come for them. The monster of this week was a different escaped gigolo.
Yep.
Who Captain MRA manages to convince our loathsome heroine to spare. And okay, that's where we were.
Yep. So going back into this, a couple of my notes are just to reiterate that like something I'm starting to get real tired of already, which is that BJ constantly refers to 21 as being the smart, clever, and resourceful one because he's the one that can pick locks. He's the one that knows. He's the one that can figure out what's going on. When she shoots you, 21, like P-21 insists that she help him, or he will immediately bail on her, and he just doesn't want to help her. She has a moment of like wrestling over the fact that U-21 kind of betrayed their entire stable, which is a big ball of baggage that I don't really want to deal with. They fight over this, and then she eventually relents because she never really talks back to 21 a lot of the time since he is the moral compass. All right, so that takes us to they leave the barn because they're trying to like continue fleeing from the raiders. Plus they need more supplies and ammo. Watcher had given them like a pointer to go into a direction basically. So they end up in a town called Withers, which is a horse pun, and get used to them because the rest of the town names are horse puns.
You know what? I'm content with that.
Yeah.
I can make peace with that.
At least it's consistent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like if you're like if your cast is composed entirely of pastel horses, like what the hell you're doing if you're not doing that? Honestly, like.
But yeah, they get spotted almost immediately once they get into Weathers because they find like the only standing structure, which is a school. The ponies on the roof start shooting at them. They shoot back. Gun shoots continue to happen. We're gonna fast forward through all of the combat that happens in the first half of this school because it's basically not important. Except for one detail, this is the first time that Blackjack gets injured in a real significant way because she's taken like bumps and scrapes. But this is where it gets really, really silly. Her first real actual injury comes from when they see a silver apple that gets lobbed into the room, which is the setting stand-in for grenades. Yes.
Okay.
It's just gonna keep going downhill from here, folks. She takes the grenade mostly to her side, and there's a weird point when this happens that I thought about. It's like she's like she describes it as like, oh well, I took most of it to the side, but the desk was in the way to stop most of the blast. That's really not how like grenades work, especially like specifically this kind of fragmentation grenade of which it's based off of. They're kind of giant balls of like shotgun shrapnel that shoot in every direction, and at such a high speed you die. Like grenades are hilariously effective, and especially in very small spaces. The idea that she gets kind of bumped, like she takes a bunch of damage, but like nothing major from it is kind of preposterous. And that'll
I don't. Yeah. Okay. So my flank has been completely removed by being shredded by shrapnel. Like I do have. I can feel some of it lodged in my rib cage, and I think one of it's punctured my lung, but I'm good.
All right.
Like I've lost like 75% of the hit points on my right flank, but it's good. I've got no damage to the like arm and leg boxes.
All right. So here we come to another contrivance of the story that's very frustrating because it's also in the main story. She chugs a healing potion and is mostly fine after that. Healing potions are in this story stand-in for stim packs, which in themselves from Fallout are kind of a wonder drug of healing magic. Even in its own sci-fi setting, it kind of just is a super healer. Healing potions are really frustrating in this kind of narrative because it's not a video game and it doesn't really need video game abstractions like this. Her being able to just be able to negate...
Well, except that it does. She got a perk a while ago, and like the VATS is
diegetic.
Yeah, it's diegetic. Like she's got VATS and she acquires perks. Except that people like oh no, I've blue screened.
You're now defending the story's stupidity, aren't you?
No, I was about to. I was in the middle of doing it, but as I began articulating its case. I feel like a just a good old country lawyer who's on the floor attempting to convince the jury of my client's innocence, and it only just now occurred to me that my client is incredibly guilty.
All right. I guess we should keep moving on, so we're not here all day yelling about this. So skipping through most of the combat that happens in this shit, she then has a moment where she basically points a shotgun at another horse's head, like one of the raiders, and the raider like gives up and flees. And she's like, well, whatever. If I don't have to weigh shells, I don't have to weigh shells. We then come into like kind of the sort of like main climax of this particular conflict of story, like in the story. I had to like reread a lot of this stuff over and over again because there's a lot of times, especially in these early chapters, where Somber like kind of buries the important details of the scene in single sentences and then draws out the gore in multiple paragraphs. Sifting through this stuff becomes very, very difficult as to what actually is happening. Like I just skipped through a bunch of that school, and basically the best way to describe what happened at school is she ran into the front door, and she might as well have phased through every other part of the building until she got to the end of it, because they never really talk about like topography or geography of the environment in any real particular detail. So as far as we're concerned, the school is one large building with one large room and then another smaller room where we're now in. To just sort of wrap up the end of the school section of our play. So she gets into the like main area of the raiders, finds out that a bunch of young horses have been taken captive. The moment like the raider catches her doing this, she like in the room, she like darts behind them and starts using them as cover and hucks I think they try to huck a grenade or try to pull a grenade, and this is when like Blackjack does the one interesting thing in this entire fight, in my opinion, in which she like uses her telekinesis to just kind of like stick the pin back in, just as the person goes to throw it, which just comes to mind of like, why doesn't everyone do that all the time? Why are grenades even a thing if you can just do that? But I digress. He starts using.
But I want to digress more a little bit, like, because it occurred, like, the only reason I could think of that it wouldn't be done all the time is that it's phenomenally difficult. Like, it requires extreme finesse.
It is, as it turns out. This kind of gets backfilled in, sort of, that it is very difficult to do that kind of level of telekinetic precision. But it's important to note that, again, Blackjack is a total fail-son, and up to this point hasn't shown any skill for magic of any kind, including telekinesis. I mean, a plot detail I think I forgot to mention in the first chapter is that she gets stuck in some magical hoof cuffs that apparently every security opponent is supposed to be able to get out of, and she just doesn't know the spell to disarm it because she's an idiot. But anyways, she tries to disarm this hostage situation by doing the like generic like action movie thing of like slowly walking up to them. But like in this case, since it's in magic telekinesis horses, I believe she's like hovering her shotgun around some debris as she's doing this slowly, because the raider doesn't really want to kill them, even though like raiders eat people in this story. So like, why would they even like think a second thought about killing off one of the ponies in the middle of this fight? But whatever. And then she magically telekinetically plugs this horse full of justice bullets and saves these small horses. To fast forward past this into the next, I think it's not even next day, it's like next scene. They rescue the tiny horses. P-21 is revealed that like, because like Blackjack gets shot during the scene, it's revealed that like the raider that she spared went to get backup, proving the tried and true concept of never help your enemies ever. All bad guys must be exterminated. Murder, it's the only way. But it just so happens
But spare someone who betrayed your whole...
Yep. But it's because P-21 told her not to, and also specifically he told her not to because that was one of the stable males. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So it's revealed that P-21, while refusing to use firearms, is actually pretty decent with a hand grenade. A hoof grenade? Fuck. That's dumb. But
silver apples, or wait, is it now a grenade, not a silver apple?
It turns out it's a grenade. Like they reveal it's a grenade, but it's like every time it's described, it's a silver apple that actually has a literal stem that gets pulled, and that's the.
That hurt inside. Like, I had said just a moment ago that I was cool with the like. That's so dissonant. This is a Kaufman-esque like masterpiece of like brutality to the observer of the art. Like, people are being like gored, like being converted into chunky salsa by literal little silver apples that function as grenades.
I know. It's fucked up, isn't it?
Okay, well, alright, so they're magical silver apples. Maybe all they do is fire and concussive force? There's nothing to say that the, like, apple chunk, I'm
thinking too hard on this. But yeah, it turns out P-21's decent with a hand grenade despite not wanting to use a gun. But yeah, they rescue all these tiny horses, and they reveal themselves to be, despite being a bunch of small children, perfectly capable of handling themselves, as they belong to some faction referred to as the Crusaders, which is a reference to the main story, but don't worry about it. The Crusaders are some kind of like all young child, so Philly and Colt or Buck, faction that just does odd jobs for a bunch of the other factions in the area. And they were working for a group known as the Finders, which is another faction. And then they got caught by a bunch of raiders, and then Blackjack saved them.
Oh man! All right, yeah, no, this is an example of how dense this rabbit hole. Like, okay, right. So the faction is called the Crusaders.
Yep.
They are urchins.
Yes.
Who? Okay, all right. Okay, so Wasteland Boy Scouts.
Yep.
Who are called Crusaders.
Yep.
And function kind of like the harbors from that one D&D setting.
And they were
The audio isn't picking up, but I'm blinking furiously as like my brain tries to like.
at least the audio is picking up in general, though. And they work for the Finders, who are the generic like neutral merchant trader faction of the setting. They'll trade with anybody is their motto. They're called the Finders for a really dumb joke later on. That's when I get to talk about capitalism, Horace. We get introduced to the only named character of this bunch right now, a crusader by the name of Scoodle, who runs their little posse of crusaders.
Death fault.
Man, that's so bad. That's so horrible to think about. But yeah, she's a young little filly that introduces my least favorite sorry, I keep saying least favorite as if there isn't more bottom of the barrel that we're not excavating into the earth as we go. But one of my less favorite aspects of this story is that children are incredibly jaded in this story. Like typically speaking, like adults are optimistic and children are like jaded, ready to die, and it's fine, but it gets really frustrating because of how often it does that, and I don't know. It's something that really
There is no future. Bedtime will never come.
But yeah, so they help them out, and they're sort of agreed to like sort of help each other in some facet. And we're almost done our story, like our particular point in the story. Like I said, it really just was a farm and a school. We get one last sort of like cinematic shot where they exit the school and they see like the big city, like the big city that our story is going to be taking place in, of like giant monolithic skyscrapers off in the distance.
Giant what now?
Skyscrapers. You heard me?
The bombed out. Okay.
You
right.
heard me?
Yeah. No. Okay.
You heard me?
Yeah, no. I did. I mean, there's all this talk about like ministries and like things that only happen in like a calcified state, like long-term stable society. All right.
All right. But yeah,
no. Okay. It's Pony Dread. It's Judge. Like okay. So we come to Mega City, or Mega Pasture 1, I guess.
No, we have a name for this, and that's what I was about to get into. So we get our billboard sign of our not titular, but like main focus story. I keep saying titular a lot. And we get "Welcome to Hoofington, the city of tomorrow," along with a bunch of like advertisements for a bunch of locations. They eventually go into the story. They mention Shadowbolt Tower. They mention the home of the Hoofington Reapers. They mention the Raw Bronco headquarters. And then just to add injury to more injury, over top of "Welcome to Hoofington" has been sprayed out and flecked out paint. "Abandon hope, ye who enter here."
Toesville.
Footburg.
Footsburg. Dun, 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 dun. Life is a
Feet Town.
Footburg.
Are we just doing the like DuckTales theme?
I might have. I'm regressing into like thinking about other stories that are good.
This is only chapter 2. We've got 76 or whatever more episodes to go.
I don't have to believe you. I haven't read this. You're lying. No. So to comfort myself, henceforth, welcome to Footburg.
Welcome to Footburg.
The gate to hell.
The gate to hell. So we got one last point that matters. As they're having their little big like dramatic reveal, music swell moment, Watcher reappears, and it's revealed that Watcher basically put the information there because they wanted Blackjack to help these ponies, and it just so happened they also had supplies that they would need. And Blackjack kind of calls him out on this, and is like, well, you know what? Most people aren't willing to just help random ponies out in the waste, so sometimes I just push them in the right direction when I can, which, I mean, fair. The story's filled with characters who would just eat you if they had the chance. But yeah, so that's our chapter for this week. So weird. Got any notes for me?
Yeah, I've got a big note, but first a slight lighter note. So like, all right, let me see if I can't recap everything that happened. Um, so our heroes journey out. They spend some time reminiscing about how good the story this story is based off on
Hmm.
is like was like we spend some time like thinking about a marginally better fanfic, and then we're attacked by the Reavers and a traitor pony who is spared because he resembles our secret protagonist, our John Watson, our
Hmm.
bizarro John Watson, who exists not to like highlight the virtues of our protagonist, but like their many and irrelevant deficiencies, kind of untrue deficiencies. Like I'm like this. So is this is told from the perspective of a third person
No,
omniscient narrator?
nope. It's a first-person perspective of Blackjack. Yep.
Oh no. Oh no, the implications are okay, so let me stew on that. Let that digest a second. Let's talk about nuclear families and how like so the thing
Nuclear
that I got
families and you.
the thing that I got sort of stuck on earlier that I had trouble figuring out how to articulate is that the core premise of this is like a pretty standard like okay we present how messed up the environment our alien character like comes from is by exposing them to normalcy and seeing them like respond in confusion and potentially disgust.
Hmm.
Nuclear families are not normal. Like
Yeah, they're not.
uh nuclear families are a result of like sort of the neoliberal atomization of Americans
Hmm.
in the American suburbs following World War II. Like there's sort of a tragically archaic phrase of "it takes a village to raise a child," which is because like a nuclear family is a new and insane idea that like traditionally like most like people have lived in like a family could never be like nuclear until like post World War II. Because like think about it like okay you have a mother and father, they have x number of children, and then each of those uncles and nephews like typically don't like go off and get a whole new damn house. Like
Yeah.
especially it is especially weird because this is a farm. like
Yeah.
like farm like
Well,
have you ever met a farm family? I have I have them in my family tree, and like because you have all this land, all this damn land, it's so easy to like not have to like move everyone like diaspora everyone constantly. Like the endless like segregation and diaspora of like cousins from each other is an incredibly new and very American phenomena. And so it's really telling of our author that he like presents okay here is our sort of grotesque protagonist from this hellish like alien world presented with normalcy, and what's presented as normal is a nuclear family living on a farm.
it's also important to note too that the Apple family on which these characters are based upon are also kind of an outlier in the story that they're like in in My Little Pony. They're kind of an outlier because they're the only family that's shown to be like a full structured family, at least for the first seasons, which is the stuff where this was based off of. So like it's a like they invented a grandfather for these characters that doesn't exist just for the story to be sad about him. Because it doesn't
um
bite as much if it's not a male character because of the way that this has been structured.
and then let's follow up on like how badly the author tips their hand on their like sort of kind of grotesque MRA agenda. Like this is clearly so to fill you in, Fi, and the audience, if you weren't familiar. So the dynamic of a Holmes and sorry a Holmes and Watson is that like the Watson is there to highlight how good like how great our super impressive protagonist is, and oh my god, Watson was the narrator too. Oh my god. Also, none of the like Bible, like none of the like kind of related. none of the books of the Bible are told from Christ's perspective. It's always like the apostles, talking to and about Christ. And so when you have like the person who is right all the time and who is the Ubermensch, you have sort of a schlubby like person who doesn't understand anything, always asking them questions so they can explain it to the audience.
Right.
Oh my God, P21 is the protagonist of the story.
So that isn't inherently exactly true, and we'll get to later chapters that prove that isn't true. But
okay, thank God.
For right now, you are on the ticket. It is absolutely a story about P21. So
what would a slave gigolo know of fathers and soldiers and like how,
nothing?
Like,
absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just about out of time. So I think anything else that you want to say, maybe we should put in a pin it for next week. So
no, that was the bulk of it.
Is like perfect.
How we tip, like how Somber tips their hand on their assumption of what normalcy constitutes as, and how badly he needs to proselytize about how like men are really the are really like the ones suffering in society and like deserve their due respect for their like natural position in the world and how hard that is.
All right, so that's our episode. Hopefully you all liked it. I guess we're gonna lead into the next chapter. The next chapter is called Chapter 3: Learning Curve. We're also we got on the iTunes. That's real cool. So write us a review of iTunes. That'd be a great idea if you want. We're just kind of having fun here. Well, I'm torturing Weird, but we're having fun.
Validate us.
But
subscribe.
Like, comment,
validation.
But yeah, and I guess we're gonna have to catch you guys next time when we have to deal with even more of this crap, way more survivor guilt.
Wait, did we get a new perk this chapter?
So I've decided a much more fun thing to do to get that hashtag, engagement with our audience. I want my audience to guess what the perk's going to be. This one's kind of cheating because it's a made-up perk, but try and just think about the things that the author would think would be important and would happen in the story, and then we'll figure out if people figured it out next episode. But
all right. Okay, I guess he's Fi, I'm Weirdington Esquire, and this has all been a terrible mistake.